Hello, and welcome to Threads of Fate. This is not the Links of Tartarus campaign. This is a separate spin-off show where you get to meet the Hands of Fate a bit more closely, a bit more intimately. We try to keep you up to speed with what the party knows and what the audience knows up to this point, even before the stream began. So, first guest, Gavin. Welcome to the show, Gav. How you doing?
Hello, thank you. I'm doing pretty good.
Love
Been awake a whole whopping 3 hours.
Hey, gotta love time zones. So we're just gonna go through some basic questions to learn a bit more about Ryujin as a character, and talk about what we know of Ryujin so far. So obviously, Gavin and I know more about Ryujin than the party does. So we're only gonna talk about stuff that is common knowledge at this point.
Okay.
So, let's start off with just the basic physical description in detail. So, like, if I walked into a room and I saw Ryujin, what am I looking at?
Okay, so he's about 6'1". He's not like a really muscular build, kind of more in between lean and muscular, He's got kind of short, messy, black hair. Adagio or Isaac always draws.
That's a great question I was going to bring up, actually. Yeah, so to clarify, you say that Ryujin has black hair, but on D&D Beyond, the picture that you chose that resembles your character has purple hair, and thus Isaac, our Adagio and our official campaign artist, always draws Ryujin with purple hair.
I'd say at this point, I just kind of have to accept that it's like maybe a dark purple,
Sure, it's like so dark black that it almost looks purple when the light hits it in certain ways.
Yeah.
Sure, canon.
He's got an eye patch over his left eye. As I feel like that'd be common knowledge, the radiant brand underneath.
Yeah, so to catch the audience up to speed, so it's part of the demigod build. Every demigod is born with a radiant brand, essentially the symbol of their godly parent somewhere on their body. It marks them as a demigod, it marks them as divine blood, all that sort of thing. And so each of the players got to choose where their mark was, and so Ryujin's is right on his eye that he covers with the eye patch so that he can control who knows his divine origin.
He wears pretty basic, leather armor with like a blue, what would you call it? I mean, I imagine it more like a hoodie, kind of more than a cloak, but it is kind of a cloak. It's got the hood, and then it's like a long sleeve shirt underneath. He's got messy short black hair. He's got sea bluish green eyes.
There's definitely a sea blue, sea green motif throughout his entire character.
Yeah.
Understandably so, as a son of Poseidon.
He wields a trident, although until just recently he never used it.
Yeah, we were gonna get to weapons next, but yeah, so you have a trident and you have a net, and you rarely use either of them. Although you did have success with the net one, so we should probably say you are one of the 3 party members, one of the 3 characters that has been here since the beginning. So you started your adventure in Looms. You were there when the Lynx got stolen in the first place. You began this chase against the Lynx all the way from the beginning, and it was in Looms that you successfully used your net to wrap up Ariadne in her spider form.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think that's the only time it's worked.
That's fair.
Yeah.
Because it's in the other campaign I'm in, I use a trident and a net all the time.
Do you really?
I have good modifiers, so I use it a lot.
There you go. So going off of that weapons discussion, so you have your trident, you have your net. They are rarely used because primarily you are a warlock and you use your Eldritch Blast a lot. So I don't think it's a surprise to anyone to say that your patron is Poseidon. I know that in a lot of settings, gods can't traditionally be warlock patrons, but these are Greek gods. They're very intimate gods. They're hanging out on Earth all the time. So yes, they can be patrons, especially for a demigod. And I don't believe the party knows the origin of that story of you getting your powers, right? I don't believe that's common knowledge.
I've shared a tidbit, a little bit, basically just roughed over it, saying, Poseidon saved me before I was about to die, and in doing so, empowered me and told me to go forth. That's basically all I've said. It goes a little deeper than that, but I think that's about the extent of the details I shared.
Sure, that's all. That we've scratched the surface a bit. But there's definitely more to the story. And obviously, like most warlocks, your bread and butter is your Eldritch Blast. Here we've sort of recolored it slightly to look like Ocean Spray, so it's got that watery effect, as with most of your abilities have this sort of watery effect. Which brings us to your faithful companion, Kai. You want to talk a bit about Kai?
So, Kai is a blue imp that was kind of reflavored for the whole ocean theme. It was Kai or Pact of the Blade, and I did not have good melee modifiers, so I was like, you know what? I'll take the extra hands.
Yeah, so at third level you chose Pact of the Chain. Is that what familiar is? Yeah, Pact of the Chain. You got your familiar. You chose an imp, but because imps are traditionally more oriented with fire and that sort of thing, we said, screw that, water imp. So we replaced the fire resistance with cold resistance. We gave him sort of like watery wings, that sort of thing. And he is now your companion. Obviously, we haven't really spent a ton of time with Kai yet, both on and off stream. But I always really love those interactions because it's so rare for a familiar to be able to speak common, for a familiar just like talk to you. But with the imp, that is the ability. So like, this is getting sort of more traditional interview, but like, what is it like to have Kai, to have a familiar that is like your servant, essentially your companion, who can just like talk shit?
I think it's really cool, honestly. It's there's a lot of interaction options. I don't know. There's a lot I haven't done yet, or a lot of avenues I haven't explored with Kai, but they're there, and that's like my favorite part is because I try to play Ryujin as when I was making him, I really kind of adapted his son of Poseidon. Poseidon is notorious for being known for his mood swings and going from like happy and uplifting to angry and rage. There's a storm, ships are being destroyed, right back to calm waters and sunlight, smooth sailing. So that's kind of how I try to play Ryujin a little bit. Sometimes he'll just be the common sense, other times he's just really dumb, makes bad choices, just impulsive. So I feel like there's definitely some options there with Kai that I can.
Speaking of Ryujin's dumb bad choices, let's talk about the plates thing, because the plate thing started off stream and is now continuing on stream. So I'm sure people are very confused about this plate thing. You want to talk about the plate thing a bit?
So, okay, we got to the Holy Man Inn in like what? It was like session 3 or 4.
Something like that, yeah.
And we all ordered some food, and we ate the food, and I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna take this plate, and so I did. And
you rolled pretty well. You didn't seem to notice, and then that just sort of spurred this whole crime spree where you're taking all the plates in Delphi.
Yeah, there's a plate shortage. I returned like 10 of them. I think 5 or 10.
Something like that. Yeah.
But it's never gonna stop. I'll keep this going.
Let's shift a bit to more of the juicy stuff here. So let's talk about backstory a bit. Obviously, no one's backstory has been officially completely revealed or anything like that, but I think Ryujin, more than probably most of the party members, has delved into his backstory a bit. specifically with the deal that you made with Archmage Nadar back before you realized he was a dragon. So talk about so you had this spine in your possession, this like needle, like almost like a porcupine spine. Talk about that a bit, about what everyone knows, what the audience knows about that so far.
Okay. Well, I think a little bit of the information I shared with the party was before stream. So should I just kind of cover that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Real quick. So basically, when Ryujin was, younger, he's a young man, his mother passed away. And when that happened, he found this quill-like spine just on her person, on her body. And so he's carried that with him throughout his journey up until this point, to eventually figure out what it is and where it came from, because he had some suspicions that it could be linked to the untimely demise of his mother, but he wasn't too sure, because it just seemed like it was a sudden illness, and he wasn't very well versed in anything assassin related, I suppose. But so the whole deal with Nadar was, I presented that to him and had asked if he knew where it was, or where it was from, or what it was, and he told me a little bit and said that if Ryujin told him what happened in the gauntlet, that he would tell me the rest of where it came from and who may or may not have been responsible for Ryujin's mom's dying.
Yeah, so obviously the deal didn't quite go according to plan, but he did give you some information. He told you that it was probably from a Triton, which are undersea living creatures, and who in this setting in Gaia almost exclusively worship Poseidon, which is bizarre, because why would someone who worships Poseidon do that to someone who was a former lover of Poseidon? But he did give you enough to go on as sort of a next step to uncover this mystery a bit, at least a lead, if you will.
Yeah. Man, I really need to write that down or just add that to my backstory. I know you sent it to me over Discord.
Probably.
Let's see.
And I think that's probably the only thing we know about your back. Have you even said like where you're from in game?
Maybe like once or twice at the very beginning, when we were all just glossing over like, oh yeah, where are you from? Oh, I'm from here, But other than that, I don't really think so.
Yeah. Well, Ryujin's from Jorax. That's in the Spartan territories, which is south of the Athenian Alliance. And I think you're the only Spartan in the campaign so far. So that's exciting. So last thing I want to talk about, obviously a lot of stuff happened right before the stream started. Chief among them was the psychic attack that started the siege on Delphi, the attack that made you guys all experience traumatic memories. And although all those memories haven't necessarily been communicated within the party, the audience, quote unquote, has seen all of these memories. So why don't you talk a bit about what you experienced during that psychic attack?
Okay, so in the psychic attack, Ryujin,
it's hard to say.
He was kind of just taken back a bit to when he was young and his mother was still alive. And they were on a beach, training, and I think he threw his dagger at her, and she dodged out of the way, made like a snarky little remark, and then she turned around to go grab it, and I think Ryujin looked away, or I can't remember exactly what he did, but he took his eyes off of his mother for a second, and in that time, when she was out of view, maybe she walked behind a rock, but in that time where she was out of view, there was, from what you had described, it sounded like there was, larger waves hitting the rocks and the beach and whatnot, but it sounded like there was a smaller, like, not a wave, but something.
Some sort of something in the water, some sort of movement in the water that sounded like something potentially emerging from the water.
Yeah. And after that, Ryujin's mother, Yue, was walking back, and she looked very sickly, drained of color and energy, and that was the last day that she was healthy and, you know, in really completely there before she had died.
Right. And I don't believe you've really talked to anyone in the party about that. Obviously, all of the players have heard this because I didn't do all of these individually. So everyone heard everyone's memories, but the party members have not heard this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
Yeah, the only time I've mentioned detail to Ryujin's mother was to Nadar when Adagio was there, and I think Adagio's only the actually person in the party.
I think you're right.
Really
I think
knows.
Adagio's the only one who knows anything about your mother's murder.
Yeah, because even afterwards, when I had agreed to the deal with Nadar and Adagio was mad, I explained a little bit, if I can do this and figure out what happened to her, then I feel like it's the right thing to do. She was the only person I had in my life ever, basically, growing up. And, that's really a driving force for Ryujin, I feel like, is he's a very sentimental guy, really, cares about those bonds that he makes. And, his mother was the first one that he ever had, like most people, losing her was like a devastating blow.
For sure. Last thing, let's just talk a bit about the group dynamic. So where do you think Ryujin fits in the group? What sort of role do you think he plays in the group?
I think at first, after Lathos just, disappeared for like a session or two, he was the de facto leader just because I was talking so much.
Mm-hmm.
And then I, kind of mellowed out a little bit. Right now, I think somewhere between charismatic comedic relief or, just the... I'm not sure. That's a tricky one because the way I see Ryujin is he's capable, but everyone has their flaws, and I try to play on that a little bit. Like, he's not the smartest guy, right? A lot of stuff goes right over his head.
Definitely.
So I try to, sometimes I slip up and I say something that would be way too smart for Ryujin, like I'll notice something like, two pieces of a puzzle going together that I shouldn't really notice, but...
Listen, everyone can get inspiration every now and then,
Yeah. I'm really not sure. I mean, just kind of... I'd like to think that he tries to be the glue that kind of holds everyone together a little bit better because he cares about everyone so much. I don't know. Having lost, his mother, like I said, he cares about those bonds and he doesn't want to lose them. After Phaeton passing, that's just kind of been increased at this point. So yeah, I'd like to think that he tries to be the glue that like holds everyone together, and he hasn't gotten to know everyone super well yet, but he still appreciates them and cares about them and doesn't want to see any of them leave or die.
Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, like, in game, because you experienced some sort of time warp when you guys were in the gauntlet, in game you've been together for like maybe a month, but actually to you guys has probably been like a little over a week, maybe 2 weeks. Like, it has not been long at all.
Yeah.
All right, well, listen, man, thank you so much for being the guinea pig with the very first episode of Threads of Fate. Gavin, thank you for joining me. Everyone who's watching, hope you understand Ryujin a bit more now and can root for him in the next episode. I really hope you don't die in the next episode, because that would be extremely unfortunate.
Why would I die in the next episode?
I don't know. Tune in. Bye.